screen sharing, and this Hangout in there is live September 25th, 2004, World Tourism Day Hangout, and the hashtag WTD 2014. And I am very pleased to have with me good friend and colleague Anders Kerstedt from Sweden. On this side of the Atlantic, good morning, Anders.
Good morning, Ron.
So it is World Tourism Day. Can you tell us about the parades and the carnival floats in Sweden today?
Oh, they are just everywhere. Now, really, big joke. You can't see anything of it. I would imagine that if you ask 100 Swedes about World Tourism Day, nobody know what it is.
Hey, I'm going to ask you, how do you translate World Tourism Day into Swedish?
Världsturistdagen.
That's what I would. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we've been conversing for a couple of years now, but you have some big news in your professional life. Would you like to share that?
Well, I just recently became a crossbreed between the real world and the academic world. As I started to teach, I've been in the tourist business for 15, 20 years, but on the practical side of it. And I got a request if I'd like to teach. We have something in Sweden called gymnasium, which is similar to senior high in the US, and to teach tourism for pupils. And I thought it was a really good idea. Why not? So there I am since a month back.
And you're continuing your work with Nutisami Sira?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, of course.
Can you paint a picture? One of the topics that we're discussing and celebrating through World Tourism Day is the connection between tourism and communities.
Yeah.
What are the pros and cons? How do things play out in Sweden in terms of what's good and what's not so good in terms of communities and tourism there?
Well, if we are talking about rural tourism, I think it's just fine, because most of the time it's driven by locals, and they need to have the society with them in their business, because they are relying on whatever services from the local community, and it's also, of course, a good idea out of sustainability reasons to join your community and see to that money spreads everywhere, because then you have happy customers and you have happy locals.
Now let's remind people. Here we have the Earth, and you're far north of Africa, pretty close to the nozzle here.
Yeah.
In lovely Sweden.
Yeah. And I have snow outside here now.
Is it already dark?
Yeah, it's dark and there's snow on the ground.
And how close is the nearest reindeer?
I don't know, maybe a kilometer or so.
Very good. Hey, many thanks to our 4 viewers. A reminder to the audience and our remote participants, questions are welcome. We do have the Q&A app active, so feel free to pop in a question. Comments are also welcome, and this Google event page can be used to document your thoughts and suggestions and recommendations for community tourism. I want to go back to Sweden and ask you this. What have you seen as changes in terms of community relations and tourism in the past 10, 20 years?
Well, as the idea of sustainable tourism or ecotourism has developed, there are more people that are in business that realize that it's a better thing to have the locals joining you in what you're doing. And as I said earlier, when you come to rural tourism, when you are out there, it's out of necessity that you have the locals to join you. But there's also, what has happened is that people living in the small villages realizes that tourism can actually be a good thing. If you go back to 30, 40 years back, then it was like more tourists were more like a menace for them, because they were running around everywhere, and it wasn't really organized, and there were people there of different causes, and especially when it comes to indigenous populations here that have been like photo objects, more or less. They never saw any money from tourism, but there were plenty of people running around taking pictures of them, or possibly buying some cheap handicrafted souvenirs.
I hear you. Going back to the comments you had about the school, the gymnasium where you're teaching, are you getting an idea of what younger folks are doing in Sweden in terms of what their aspirations are as tourists / travelers and professionals working in the hospitality industry?
Well, as tourists, they work pretty much as anyone else, I would say. But I educate in sustainable tourism, and when we start up, we have like more or less a questionnaire where they have to answer questions like, do you do this, do you do that when you are abroad, and when they have filled out the form, we start to discuss about those the answers. That like, do you look out for a hotel which has some sort of environmental practices or marked or certified in certain ways? Do you eat local food, or do you go to the nearest restaurant and take a pizza? And questions like that, just to make them realize that there are different ways of traveling.
And what are your impressions? You know, you've asked the questions. What are you finding out?
Well, they most of them work like most tourists really. They are taking a charter, all inclusive, and don't really think about it. It's what they buy is more driven by prices than really to think twice about what they are doing, and out of convenience, of course.
Let me ask you, are there resources for young people in Sweden that talk about responsible and sustainable tourism in a way that's engaging, not necessarily kind of that top-down lecturing style that kind of disengages us so often?
Now, I think you have to be interested. I mean, you have to look for these sources. And of course, if you look to the Ecotourism Society in Sweden, there's an excellent website about what to think about what you are traveling. And but then again, nobody looks for it.
Well, I hear you. For me, it's hard to keep a pulse of what people are looking for or are interested in. As I've said for 20 years, having hosting Planeta, there's a certain conversation we have online, and we can connect with people and learn things or share things. And then there's another kind of conversation that you have in the street where no one has heard of World Tourism Day or World Environment Day or the International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples. These top-down events lack something that connects with people.
Yeah.
But it's also easy to be discouraged when, frankly, there are some really good things happening. And we'll put the link on, but the UNWTO does have a Share Your Celebration page on their website, and there are quite a few events around the world. So, these are good things.
Yeah.
We have our first question. I don't know if you have the Q&A app activated, Anders, but
No, I haven't.
We're going to select Sonja Holverson's question, and She's asking, do you teach the history of tourism so that young people realizes the changes as a result over history, some good and some not?
Yeah. We start in the Middle Ages, so it's with pilgrim travels and things like that. So uh, we do take concern about what happened in the past, and we start with what we call tourism today from the 60s when there were flights became available and people could go abroad in an easier way. So we take that perspective too. But of course we are discussing. We try to discuss out of what science says about trends and things in the future too. So we like to be a little bit ahead of what's happening today.
Excellent. Sonia, I hope that answered your question, and many thanks for asking a question. The Q&A app is active, and you can access that through YouTube as well as a Google Plus page. So, you know, we didn't have a Q&A app last year, Anders. This is great.
No, we didn't. And this is a good way to interact with us.
You know, I'm interested. There's the big World Tourism Day event will take place in Guadalajara tomorrow and Saturday, Guadalajara, Mexico. And hopefully there will be some parts that are online, and even better if some of these videos are archived. Earlier this week was the World Congress on Indigenous Peoples, and prior to recording I was asking you about that, and neither of us really saw that in depth. But one of the questions I have, me as a non-Indigenous person, is really how do we connect with Indigenous peoples? And when we talk about Indigenous communities and tourism, to me there are some specific issues at play that need to be thought out. Now, we've discussed this at length, but I'm going to ask you again. What are your recommendations for Indigenous communities that want to work with tourism and make the most of it?
Sorry, can you take it again? I didn't catch you.
I was asking, we've discussed this before, but I'll repeat the question. In your view, do you have any recommendations for Indigenous communities that want to make the most of tourism?
Yeah, first of all, take care of the business. I mean, there's like nobody else should tell you what to do. So you have the business in your own hands, that you can make the decisions. You can show what you like to show, and you can so you are not having your culture raped by tourism, because that's the first thing that, if that happens, then you closes down a lot of the enthusiasm about having guests. See to that money is spread through the community, that as many people as possible can earn something from having tourism there. And that means that if you have an old lady that makes excellent bread, buy the bread from her. Don't go to the supermarket. So that also gives the real local touch that the visitors are looking for. So it's and whatever you do in food, know what serve local dishes. Know exactly how it's produced and where the food comes from, because that's good for the storytelling.
You know, I think that I think back to some.
Yeah.
You know, well, let me hold on to that. But you know, I think back to the experiences I had in Oaxaca, Mexico, where our good friend Pedro Martinez would lead people on biking tours, and often winding his way to rural communities and to indigenous homes in the rug weaving village of Teotitlan de Valle. And it really took time not to convince Pedro, but to convince the tourism office that those culinary touches were really what made the trip. And it was hard to convince people that in the tourism officials, and it's changing now, But it was hard to convince the tourism officials that people did want to eat in other people's homes or sample the local food. You know, I'm thinking of the flour tortillas and the not flour tortillas. Oh, I've been in the U.S. too long. The corn tortillas or the tajate drink, uh, the tajate called cube in Zapotec. Uh, but it was, you know, that's not how people served people in the 1960s. In the 1960s, you'd go to the restaurant.
Yeah.
If you went out to the village, yeah, you might buy a basket, but you're not going to eat or drink anything out there.
No.
And that's changing slowly.
Yeah.
Is it similar in your experience with the Sami?
Yes, it is. Yeah, of course. But it's more that you have to be able to provide the guest with that service. I mean, if you don't, they will go back to the restaurant and eat the same food as anywhere in the world. So it's you maybe you have you first of all you have to be able to provide them and to market the thing that you actually can have a meal here, and then maybe you have to adapt some of the dishes to make them more normal, so to speak. To not really that you have to change the flavors, but you have to see that people are maybe not eating, not anyone is eating intestines from animals and things like that. So you have to, if it's too raw, there is always a risk that you scare people away.
No, I hear you. I hear you. That's why, again, that's why I'm a big fan of photos. You know, at least show me the picture of it, and then I can say, oh, I'm not eating that, or hey, that's intriguing.
Yeah.
Uh, my friend Melissa Biggs, um, anthropology teacher in Texas, would use the Flickr group called World Food as an example of asking students, "Would you eat this?" And it's by the photos that you could check these things out.
Yeah.
Here's follow-up from Sonia. Thank you, and she says thank you.
Yeah.
This is she's talking about the history. So many young people think the world has always been this way. Bravo.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you must have the history to understand the future.
So where do we want to go with our future in terms of communities and tourism? I mean, are we satisfied right now, or what are the directions we should be pushing toward in the next 10 years?
I would say it looks hopeful in the academic world. Looks hopeful because what the scientist says, who is studying tourism, is that sustainable tourism is one of the big trends in the future. I mean, and it's quite natural really because we can see all the environmental threats around us, and most people realize that we can't just go on the same way as we are doing. And this shows an alternative. So it's and it's great fun. I mean that's the best part of it. In my view, it's great fun. That's the real thing about visiting a country, is to visit the rural area, see how people live, see and share the dishes with them.
Let me ask you
Learn a
this.
few words in the language.
That is important. Let me ask you. You are based where?
I'm in Kiruna, which is situated pretty far north in Sweden.
Do you know
It's the same,
roughly the population?
around 20,000, and it's a city which is, I think it's the second biggest in the world in area.
Twenty
There's
thousand people in the world's second largest city.
yeah, there is so few people per square kilometer in the city, so there is it's not even populated.
How close is your nearest neighbor?
Well, where I'm sitting right now, around half a mile.
And then I think you have the credibility to talk about rural tourism.
Yeah, I do. I do. This is rural.
Oh, um, as we look at the festivities and the celebrations of World Tourism Day, um, where do we go from here in the next year? 2014, 2015. You and I are committed to developing Indigenous Peoples Week again in August. Is anything else on the calendar that you'd like to announce?
Not what I can think of right now. Um, no, not really.
No, that's fine. Another question has just rolled in. Thank you, Greg Hubbs. We're going to select that. Reminder, we do have the Q&A app activated. And Greg has asked, speaking of sustainable travel trends, what do you think of the slow movement, which started with slow food and expanded into other areas of interest worldwide? Do you think it is bound to be co-opted, like so many other movements have been? Slow food, Anders. What are your thoughts?
You're talking to a fan. So it's but I introduced in one of our chats. I introduced the slow adventures, which I really like. It's the total opposite to been there, done that. So I mean, it's a way to do adventures, but you don't have to rush through them.
And why
You don't,
you created the Facebook page for Slow Adventures,
yeah,
um, but why?
because I've been doing slow adventures for many years with people from abroad, and um, as most people today living in cities with, and they are pretty stressed up, um, and they think they have a need to know everything, and they need to have schedules, and they need to have cell phones and electricity and things like that, and I've been taking them out to areas where I haven't seen a single human being for a week, and there's absolutely no electricity, or they don't need their wristwatches, especially summertime up here. I mean, we're midnight sun, so the sun is shining 24 hours a day, so you don't really need to have a schedule. And it's warm and it's comfortable, and you bring them nice food, and so you can really relax and have a good time out there. And it takes, in my experience, it takes a couple of days to just get them down in pace so they can start to experience things. Because the first days they ask, most of the questions is about how far and when. And when you stop answering those questions, they can spend the time just experience, not worrying about when we are going to have a meal, or where we're going to go today.
So as a movement, and by the way, we're looking at the screenshot of our Slow Adventures page, and I'll post a link there on our Google event page. By the way, we have 99 likes. So, hey, Greg,
Yeah,
you can, if you're not already there, you can be number 100. Um, but in terms of the movement, are we ready to go slow as a tourism sector?
I think so. Um, at least there should be some companies in the forefront, uh, trying to educate or to show people that you don't have to rush through things. There are plenty of slow cities where they try to display the slow adventures in the city. I mean, take a bike, go around, look for yourself, and things
You know,
like that.
I go back to the experience I had in New Mexico and in Oaxaca, where because the visit to Teotitlán de Valle for ages since the 50s, 60s was promoted as part of a half-day trip. So you would spend, 40, maybe 50 minutes in the village. which allowed you to go to one house, La Casa de los Revendedores, a house where they would resell carpets that were made, rugs or weavings that were made. But it would provide you no opportunity to see the community museum or the town market or the church or the archaeological site. But it was so difficult to get people to go from a 50-minute visit to a 2-hour visit. And there are some businesses that have developed, I'm thinking about the Fundación en Villa, that have stretched it out to a half day or a full day trip just in Teotitlán. But for the most part, there was such resistance to slowing down because their view is that the people wanted to see as much as possible in a 2-day visit to the city. Again, how do we? I mean, I'm not afraid of it being co-opted. I'm afraid of it just being ignored. You know, we're not slowing down.
Yeah, but then again, you must provide trips like that, and I think when people have tried it out, they realize what a good thing it is really to get the word around. Because now I mean we do have the picture of going on like a charter trip and with the fixed bus tours and things like that, and there's you should be there for 1 hour and then you have been there, done that, and then next thing. But that's just to promote the way we live normally, and you don't show the alternatives. So I think there's I know there is a market for to slow down and to relax. It's like going to retreat when you are hiking in the mountains for a week without schedules and without fixed camp places and without fixed anything really, more than that you have good guides that can tell you just anything out there and provide healthy and nutritious food.
Well, you and I are both sold on that, and I know Greg is as well. There's also a new movement I just heard about this week called Slow Money. And I know very little about it, but it's from our friends in Slow Food, and it's a form of crowdfunding, but again, along the same lines of making much more conscious decisions and investments at that local level. Have you heard of Slow Money, Anders?
No, I haven't. But we from time to time we have practiced slow money in a way because we have funded small things for the community by charging our customers an extra percent or so on what they normally pay for a trip. And we told the customers that we are doing it. And we haven't had any negative comments about it so far.
What happens to this money?
Well, you can spend them either on environmental things or if you have like a project to save some ancient forest somewhere, you are collecting money for that, and we just take this money and we put it into other people's money, and in the end we have actually been able to buy small pieces of ancient forest. Instead of that they have like harvested the area.
Right. Hmm. Well, again,
Or
that's
you can I mean there's the World Wildlife Fund. You can spend money on if you have some endangered species in the area.
hmm
There's an excellent way to just you can be like a host company with the World Wildlife Fund, so you can spend the money there and try to save the species that you
does,
have in your neighborhood.
does Nutisamisida have an arrangement with World Wildlife Fund in that regard?
Not for the moment. We used to have, yeah. We have been on there from time to time. You do it one year at a time.
hmm Do you have any? Do you or they have any link to information about that?
Um, I'm
And
not
it,
sure that it's on the website anymore. I don't think so. As we have, for the moment, we are not sponsoring anything with World Wildlife Fund. So I suppose it's gone from the website.
okay, still, what an interesting idea. I've added the slow money link to our event page and to what's called the showcase. So, Greg, thank you for the question, and yeah, we will continue our championing of the slow movement, and we're just not in any hurry. Going back over to the Q&A app, we have another question in from Ursula Straight. Hope I have that pronounced correctly. And she is asking, one second, let me get to Ursula. We'll just select Greg's comment. He's commenting, not questioning. Great stuff on the slow movement and slow adventure. My concern is that some unnamed are cashing in big time on it and charging yuppie consumers double the normal prices. So, is that happening in the slow arena?
I haven't seen it in the tourism business yet. That as it's not. I mean, it's not really hype today to go on a sustainable tourism trip. So I could think about it as if you like to go on a northern light excursion or something which is pretty far out, but it's still a slow adventure that people are seeking for that part of the market. But still, again, I don't think it's wrong. I mean, if they have an excellent product and they price it, then people buy it. Why not? As long as they are not dealing with mass tourism and things that are aside of the idea of sustainable tourism. So I mean, if they do it nice and carefully and in small groups and treat the customers well and pay back to the local society, why not? I mean, the price shouldn't really be a thing about it, or the market you are aiming for. It's more the way that you actually do it.
You know, the question I have, looking at the issue in a holistic, two sides of the coin way, is to what degree does a traveler, benefit, get what he or she pays for? To what degree does a community benefit? And do the communities really know how to make the most of travel and tourism? I go back to an experience, now 10 years ago in Mexico, where a group of people from a certification conference came to the city to talk about organics. And they went out to one of the craft villages, San Bartolo, famous for its black pottery, and then proceeded to really barter with the oldest lady at the market for these black figurines. And I said, I guess you're in favor of the certification, but you're not really in favor that much of fair trade. Are you really bartering with this lady for these figurines? And I realized at the very time I was saying this that I better be careful of how critical I was, because I could lose the lady her sales.
Yeah.
So to me, the question in my mind is, do we as travelers really understand what we're getting for a price? Does the tour really meet our demands, our expectations? But we're also missing an evaluation from the community. I think about so many visits to Oaxaca, Mexico, where you visit the artisans. But when you look at the tour website, you have all of these folks in traditional dress, but they're all anonymous market vendors.
Yeah.
And that nothing gets my goat as much as that. Get permission from the people and then promote them. Yeah. But all of these anonymous indigenous market ladies, all right, it's some benefit to them, but it could be so much more if honestly we had a directory and a promotion of these people.
Of course.
We'll promote, again in Mexico and Oaxaca, they'll promote the 5 best or the 10 best or the star names. But frankly, you go to these communities and everyone there, in my mind, is a star.
Yeah.
I mean, you see, I can't do any weaving. I can't make chocolate. I can't do any of these things. I don't know anyone who can. And you see these family-owned enterprises. Well, how do we promote them, and how do they want to be promoted? Um, there, and no doubt people are, again, as our questioner would say, taking advantage. Charging a lot of money, but I think the person who on the trip has gotten a kind of a poor experience, and I think the community has been um, not has not fully taken advantage of the visitor, and
No, of course.
that comes from being much more public. And if you want to be shy, if you want to be private, be private.
Yeah.
But if you want people knocking on the door of your workshop and coming in to buy a weaving, why the heck aren't you on Facebook?
Yeah, but then again, maybe they don't know how to do it. It's
Their kids do. Their kids do.
yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Yeah. So it's maybe it's both a cultural or an educational problem to get them there.
Hey, moving on to Ursula's question, and thank everybody who's asking questions during our hangout, and thank you for sharing the event and in whatever ways you're celebrating World Tourism Day this week. Congratulations. Ursula says, what's your experience? Do you think the term sustainability is often misused by tour operators to request higher prices?
I've seen it some places, but not really. It's not the usual way to doing it. As I said earlier, sustainable sustainable tourism is not a hype, so it's something that you actually have to look for and to try to find out yourself. Depending where you are in the world, you have certification systems that is everything from good to quite lousy, um, and it takes a lot of reading to go behind that to really see what it's good for. So it's but I don't really think, not today. There's not that many that promotes the trips with the reason that they are sustainable. Um, I mean, the problem is not there yet, but of course you will see it in the future. I mean, the more people, the more customers you have that are requiring sustainable trips, I mean, the more cheaters there will be. That happens everywhere in marketing. So I mean, where shouldn't it be in tourism too?
Well put. Well put. Um, Excellent. Wow, we've worked our way through the question queue. Um, yeah, for the life of me, I'm really trying to figure out if sustainability is of interest to today's travelers. And no doubt there is a niche, there is an area, but I think what we're seeing so often is decisions made on either the hype or the buzz or the price. And either you want to be somewhere where so many of your friends and colleagues have been, or you want to be in a place that's within your price point. But we're not really, again, we're not talking about eco. We're not talking about responsible. We're not talking about sustainable on any U.S. game show.
No.
And when people win a big prize, boy, they don't talk about meet the locals. They don't talk about going slowly. Here is your, here's your 5-star resort room across the world. All right, is anyone talking about these noble aspirations? Not that I see.
No, not really. But the customers, they are there. I mean, there are a few that are actually looking for sustainable products and that are really interested, and they like to be a little, at least to feel a little bit better when they are buying a product like that. And I can assure that at least the what I know about the Scandinavian market, that if you buy from a company that are certified, you get a better product. You get, at least you get a product that is that the company has been looked through by scrutinizers that have really turned on every stone that is possible, and the expenses for getting your company certified is at a level that you have to put on an effort to and really believe in what you're doing.
And who are the notable certifiers in Scandinavia?
In Sweden, we do have the brand Nature's Best, which is a cooperation between Visit Sweden, the National Tourism Board, the Ecotourism Society, and the Natural Environment Protect Agency in Sweden. So it's both like business and officials.
Do you have the Q&A app open, Anders?
Yeah, I do. I see that Ethan has a question for us.
Yeah, he's asking precisely what we're talking about. Following up on Ursula's question, I ask a lot of people, and I enjoy the rich variability in the responses. Does sustainability sell? Yay or nay?
Well, I would say it's not the prime thing today. It sells, yes, but it sells to those that are already believers. It's not really an argument to get new customers. So it's we're not there yet. But as I said earlier, I think it's coming more and more, and I see that there are more and more customers that have at least they have had a glance at the certification, and they know that, okay, this is fine. We do something good when we buy a product from this company. We do something good for the environment, or we do something good for Mother Earth. So it's coming more and more, and whatever we do now with polluting and everything, I suppose people will be more and more conscious about these things.
I hear you. I think the only distinction I would make is that there's a question of sustainability and of certification. And I think across the board, when we look at certification, the question that I've had for 20 years is, well, where is the documentation and the transparency and the inclusion? We always talk about how successful this market is and how big the market is growing from the people who do the certifying and by the people who benefit from the certification. And that should be a no-brainer of why that attitude is being taken. When we look at sustainability, I think we're talking about a larger group of people and of actors at play. And again, the question is, to what degree is this documented and open, and do we see, what is meant by sustainable operations? And again, I'm of the view that we need to encourage the communities to take great pride in whatever actions they're taking to be much more eco-responsible and sustainable. And often, the people who are at the forefront of making things sustainable are truly, really awful communicators. They're so busy planting the tree or working on the educational project or doing the this or the that they have no time left to make a public report or to snap a photo, and nothing infuriates me more. That said, I think it's a great question, and it's one that I'd love the answer to be yes, that sustainability sells, but sustainability still is not sexy enough, and being responsible is not sexy enough, and we have to be doing whatever we can to say, not just we were talking about this before, Anders, not just don't do this and don't do that, but if you go slowly, if you meet the people, if you treat people with respect, you're going to have a much better experience, and it's a mutually beneficial experience. I mean, it's all about the good, not just avoiding the bad.
I fully agree.
These are great questions, folks. So thank you very much. Um, I want to do one last screen share and throw something out to you, Anders. Um, in the interest of transparency and in the interest of participation, I've created a Google Doc, and it's open to the public. We have a link in our showcase. But the question is, what are your recommendations for communities? So on this World Tourism Week, if you have suggestions for communities, feel free to add your ideas, and we'll see where this document leads us. And here's our follow-up from Ethan. I agree, Anders. Let's give it a star and select it. Ethan writes, whether through certification and communication, as Ron is talking about, or education, we have to weave sustainability into everything we do, but I don't think it's a prime selling point yet. Any response?
As he agrees with me, I can't really oppose that.
Okay, thank you we agree with your agreement.
And thank you, Ethan.
Very good. And we're having, I'd say, the most successful viewing of our hangout in quite a while. So thank you, everybody. Interesting. As the parades are lining up over here in Las Vegas, it'll be interesting to see how World Tourism Day grows in the next 10 years. And again, we're not, to me, this is too much of an insider approach. And at some point, there will be, some sort of challenge or celebration around the world, and we'll really acknowledge the challenges and the successes of tourism. So, we continue. Comment over here from Greg Hubbs. Give it a star. Select it. And Greg is thanking Ethan for his comments. Thank you, Ethan, on everybody's behalf. But Greg asked, are there any studies, any numbers, any sense whether the inclusion of sustainability in marketing has led to increased sales? So, not many that I trust. What do you think?
Well, talking out of my own experience, as I've been helping a couple of companies with their certification and also follow up on the certification. You can't really say that sale has increased due to that they have been certified or that they are selling marked sustainable products. But it's one part that if you join a certification system, most of the time they have like a mutual platform which explains the certification system and also displays the companies that are certified, and that might help. I mean, if people are looking for sustainable tourist products, I suppose I would go looking at the platforms first to see where to look further, and so in that way you do better marketing. If you really sell more, I can't really say, but you do better marketing. You are displayed at a place where people actually look for sustainable products, and then you have to compete among the others that are certified or what else. But I mean, there's at least you have a place where it's reasonably easy to find you. There is also, of course, if we are talking about nature's best in Sweden or Scandinavia, they are also as doing marketing for the certification system, and that means that if you're a certified company, you can promote the certification by help them to they do like this if you have a company that like to have some sort of benefits for their customers, you can have like they are on their website they might display that you can buy this trip for some discharge, and you can join that. So in that case you can actually get more customers, but at a discharge price.
Do you mean a discount price?
A discount, sorry, discount, of course. My Swinglish again.
Lovely Swinglish.
Yeah. It's a little bit better than the Swedish chef, though.
Well, again, we'll throw the question out to the public, and if there are any studies, let us know. As I say, my advanced criticism is that too many of the studies that are made in favor of this are made by the people who are already in favor and doing and benefiting financially from being a consultant in certification and being a consultant in these efforts. But does it really work? The other side of the question is, for those of us who are seeking and looking for this information, when we go to the people who we've heard are doing good things, will we find the information there? And I think it's a question. I think it's the response to agreeing again with Ethan. This has to be embedded throughout the message, so that it's not just ticking the boxes and filing a report that no one reads. It's posting on Facebook and on Twitter what you're doing that promotes the good work that you're doing. Not just, I have this trip, it's on sale, and that's fine. You can tweet about that all you want. But, we are protecting the forest, or we are protecting the language, or we're participating in this big trade show, or I want to say, or a market, or a carnival. I mean, Nutisami Sito is at what big summertime event, Anders?
Well, we do. Of course, we have as there's we are open all summer for people more or less passing by. So the open air museum, and we do have a small restaurant and a souvenir shop going. But then we try to invent events during the summer. So this summer we started with the new Sami market, which means that you can go there and buy handicraft, and all the handicraft men that were there and had their handicraft on display, and you can actually go there and buy things. So we it was like a mutual benefit that we got more customers to the open air museum, and the handicraft men, they could sell their things there. So it was really great, and we had a big audience. It was for 2 days, and we had a really big audience coming there, both locals and people from abroad. And
it's those kind of events that when you engage with them, that need to be spoken out loud. And again, you let us know on Facebook and on Twitter, and that to me is a great example of talking the walk.
Yeah, well, of course we did some marketing for the event on our Facebook page, but we wasn't really that broad about it because it was the first time and we didn't know what to expect. So we tried to make it like a tryout. For the next summer, we are at least talking about a bigger event where we also have like a small musical festival with traditional Sami joik singing and also all these handicraftsmen coming there. And I think that's the way to do it, to not to make it too big in the beginning, and then it's maybe you'll fall back again. So it's better to take one step forward every year and see where it leads to. But of course, next year we will do better marketing for the event.
Slowly, it gets better and better.
Yeah.
We have a follow-up comment from Ethan, and we will select that. And he's answering Greg now. Here's an article that he's always found interesting. The case for not promoting sustainability at your hotel, resort, or lodge. And we'll put that link up there. Haven't read it. We'll see about it.
I have to look that one through. It looks interesting.
All right, so are there any final, let's see, it's 11:43 here. That's more than an hour of good chat. What time is it over on your side of the Atlantic?
It's 8:45 in the evening.
Well, thank you for taking this time. Um,
It's World Tourism Day, so why not?
well, you know, it's World Tourism Day is the 27th. I've confused
Okay.
everybody by having the hangout on the 25th. But you know, we're getting in early so that people can embed our video on their blogs about World Tourism Day. And as I say to the viewers, please, if you have some good links and some good research, if you agree or disagree, feel free to post comments on the event page or the YouTube channel. We will continue these conversations. And I think if we understand that what we want is better tourism, better travel for visitors and locals, then we can find some points of common ground. I don't know about you, but I don't know about you, Anders, but you know, I often get caught up in the, you know, do I agree with this system or that system of sustainability or of research or evaluation. The question in my mind is, you know, do the communities have what they need to make the most of tourism? And do we as travelers, as visitors to other places, do we have the information we're seeking? Because frankly, I think when we're looking for the adventures and the encounters abroad, you know, we're outliers on most official tourism portals. You know, they want us to go to the top 10 places, not the top 1,000. And if I'm seeking, you know, the rural market experience in Australia, you know, and a rugby game, you know, there's just no way I'm going to find that in a tour. If I want the time spent with Sami people, again, the question is, well, what are my options? And you know, if it's a song and dance, a theater show, and that's what I'm looking for, all right, what are my options? If it's a week-long trek with reindeer in a place where, you know, thank goodness the cell phone doesn't work, what are my options? And we have to find ways of improving that communication that assist us both ways.
Yeah. I mean,
Any,
we are small. We are talking about small products in a big world. And there's none such a thing as standalone products in that world. I mean, you have to be in an environment where you get the help to display what you are doing.
go on.
I mean, joining our chat during Indigenous Tourism Week is excellent. Come on,
That's
in
right.
August.
That's right. Please join us August 2015. And also, the next big event is Responsible Travel Week, and that's coming up beginning February 9th in the year 2015. So we will continue these conversations, and I'm happy to promote other Google Plus Hangouts and other live streaming videos. I often drag poor Anders into other live streaming videos that are often not as entertaining as this one. But you know, mainstreaming these issues requires live streaming, and we need to have some participation from the people who can't afford to attend all of the tourism conferences that one might like to attend around the world. So, yay for online video.
Join us. It's for free.
It is for free. You know, we're not charging. So with that, we'll wind up our hangout for today. Anders, thank you so much for your time and your insights. And many thanks to our remote participants and the people who have asked questions. And for those who still have something to say, please use the Google Plus event page and the YouTube video and make your thoughts known. We'll continue.
Thank you, and thank you, Ron.